planning board work session for the 21st of January. First applicant is the auto service and sales, 6200 Thompson. You,
Yeah, it's us.
your floor.
Okay. So I think we were in here last month or the month before for our initial site plan. And I think these are the newer, so at that meeting, we were asked to submit it to the DOT, which we had done. And our conversations with them pretty much evolved around, if you can move down to the next sheet. Creating this, a better working flow here at these entrances. So right now, this dotted area this is the extent of that curb cut. Same thing here, it's quite large. So when I spoke with them, instead of having to do all the recurving in the sidewalk, they advised that if we put curbing here and here, the same thing on the other side, and then just take the asphalt out and make that landscaping, that would work with them. So they've seen this and they are good with this. A lot of it comes down to when we get the permit, is having all the contractor information and such so they can, finalize the Perm 33.
Any other items that need to be addressed?
We're looking at the parking, so I think you need to put on the plans which spaces will be used for sales.
Okay,
I know you have it
Right.
enumerated on there, but
Okay.
I think the actual spaces need to be called out.
okay,
There is that one parallel spot up front.
It's not allowed in the town, you can't do parallel.
oh, you can't do parallel?
Is that because chart
We've never
doesn't
allowed
give a
parallel.
percentage?
All right, well, I think maybe we'll just rotate it and kind of have it, so we can't really, unless we add it up on the top, that's a little tight. We're kind of pushing it here, so we have to either rotate that. Maybe ends up being 2 spaces there, just to make it look better. I think we have the width to do that.
The only other one I think that we're looking at, the entry on the left.
So,
Yeah, is to slide that just to the right, because I think that curb line and the radius is actually shorter than the parking stalls. Just above it,
so this right here,
yeah, I mean, if you took that curb line and drew it straight up, I think it's shorter than. that.
Oh, gotcha.
So
well, this should line up.
that's what I mean.
Okay.
That
All right, I'll
should be at
double check
minimum
that.
19 feet.
Yeah.
19 feet.
Okay,
So that, I think that whole entry just needs to shift to the right a little bit. to
Okay.
Make sure that nobody's gonna clip a car that's hanging out
okay,
in there, so. I mean, even if you took it to the radius, if you have the ability and the room to do it. And shift that far enough to the right so that radius starts at the 19 feet.
oh, okay, a little farther than that,
But
okay,
you know, just to
Well, we'll see what we
protect,
can
protect the cars
Yeah.
and stuff that are there.
Yeah.
Keep that 24 feet though.
Yes, yes,
You're gonna
yeah, take the
need
whole
that.
thing.
yeah, and just
slide
shift it the
shift
foot or
to the
two
right,
that it
yeah.
needs, okay.
If you have the space and the ability
Yeah.
to do that.
Well, and that's, so the entrance is on this side, so, it's not like someone's gonna drive in and clip them that way, so the flow is like this.
Right.
Yeah.
So for lighting, is there any new lighting?
Yeah, there's the 2 existing lights over the bay doors that will remain.
Probably don't have. I would
What
expect.
kind of lights are they?
Yeah.
They're just like the basic wall pack light.
Are they cutoffs?
Yeah,
Basically-
they're not a floodlight,
Yeah.
they're the box,
So long as it's
I
not
have those.
projecting more than at 90 degrees,
it is.
but I know you had sent this to Jeff Deep and I don't think he really had any. Comments on the light, so I don't know if she's not changing anything.
Jeff Deep is
They do.
DOT,
DOT there.
and
Like a lighting, plan?
I mean, we should be requiring, if we're not already, we should be requiring them as part of the packages.
We are for new builds now, ones like this, I'm kind of like, I don't know.
Right, but in all of our projects, we should be, there's Mark. We should be making sure that any of the lighting and all that is upgraded and brought up to town standard. So in doing that, I think we wanna make sure that there's no adverse impact on the adjacent parcels or spillage into the street.
So can you add a photometric to your
So
package?
basically update the grow lights. Basically,
Yeah.
because I mean, those are old, I can't imagine.
Right,
being
you're
able
not
to
gonna be able to
find
get
product.
the.
Right.
So we would
Yes.
either provide a similar or install a new one.
I mean, it would be best to install a new one to bring it to the
Okay.
town standard. I mean, you're
Okay,
bringing the site and the building up to
yeah,
current, so.
okay. I think that's pretty.
Can you include a photometric then with your plans?
Yeah, so we could provide well, we can give you a catalog cut of that include the photometrics in that. Do you want a plan that shows the photometrics? It's like if we had this plan that showed the photometrics on it, is that what you're looking for, or can I just give a catalog cut?
the
Yeah,
photometric.
on the plan would be great, so we can see on the property lines with this, so. you know.
Okay, yeah, I won't be anywhere near it, but okay. I'll see what we can do. I'll have to ask someone to do that for me.
Any other questions from the board?
Yes.
Just a clarification, the sidewalk, is that an existing sidewalk, a snow shelf?
No, it's a formal concrete sidewalk and curb. So that, I think the DOT put it in maybe last summer or the summer before, so it's brand new.
So
Oh,
it's
right.
existing, in other words?
Yes, yeah,
Okay.
You're just modifying it to fit your new entries, right?
yeah, we're not touching the sidewalk. So in conversation with DOT, they don't want us to because it's so new. They prefer that we end the curbing at the sidewalk edge. And just taper it down to blend.
Shame on DOT for calling it a sidewalk, by the way.
Yeah, we weren't allowed to review it, and when we complained about it, they ignored us.
Yeah,
So you're
No.
curbing,
I
you're
know.
bringing it down around and it's tapering down to nothing.
Well, to the sidewalk,
That's,
yeah,
yeah, but, right, so. If I'm leaving, and I know these are just visual cues, but
Mhm.
leaving and you have that curbing radius
Mhm.
there.
Mhm.
Which is pointing you into the sidewalk, does it make more sense to? Start that radius and pretend that it's going to go through the sidewalk so that the curbing would almost attach. To the curbing at the street. Even if you truncate it short,
right.
you know what I'm saying, like,
So if I kind of take their DOT radiuses and made it here, but not actually build that radius,
Exactly.
that section of the radius.
just so that visual. You know, like it,
I can,
otherwise it
okay.
kind of feels like that's where the street starts,
right,
at that edge.
yes, and that's a matter of just adjusting that radius a little bit.
And these were kind of what Jeff Deep had suggested to you, right?
Yes,
So
yeah,
he
yeah,
kind
he's
of-
seen that.
Yeah. So he
Suggested this,
these angles, this radius.
Okay.
To give visual cues for turning out, right?
Right,
So we
Yeah.
kind of.
it
did
looks
this
like.
I see your point, though, it
It
makes
looks
it look
like-
like you wanna drive down the sidewalk.
A little bit, yeah, and then you're like, oh, wait, I'm on the sidewalk, I gotta move over a little bit more, but it looks
Right,
like the
so
center
it's just
island is already
straight.
kind of taking that into account. But the two very outside ones look like they haven't.
yeah. Okay. And I think that we can make that adjustment and still satisfy the DOT's
Yeah,
interests, yeah.
great,
And then just a planting schedule.
Okay. I don't have one. Did we have,
I know I asked you on one of the
Did
others, I'm
we?
getting your
Okay.
projects mixed up, but I don't think I
Okay.
have species on here.
okay. All right,
Yeah, I think that was for the next one.
okay, all right, so I can add that to the site plan.
Mark, you just joined us, do you have any other comment on this project?
Nope, not on this one.
Okay,
Look forward to it, thank
alright,
you.
so are we on for Thursday, this coming Thursday, or,
I don't think you're on for this Thursday.
okay,
Once you send us all the updated stuff, then we'll get you on,
okay,
depending when that comes in.
okay,
To, I mean, you get all this updated, we'll get you on for the first one in February.
okay.
This Thursday is the deadline.
It's the 30th is the deadline, because we have a
We have an
week
extra
off,
week?
yep. So January
Okay.
30th would be the
Next
deadline to
Thursday.
meet the February 13th.
Okay, alright, that's not a problem, okay.
Great,
Okay, great.
thank you.
I'm gonna stay for the next one. Okay, that's my problem, so, okay, you can talk with them. Alright, well, thank you. Alright, thank you.
I'll launch right into Fisk then.
Yes, sorry, Bob Abbott can't make it, this morning. So. I know he was at the first meeting. So. Just address some of the comments that well, at least the changes we made. So I know I sent Eric a plan that had the building will shift back, so that moved back. We did, so a lot of the changes that we made were in relation to the grading and the drainage, because it's in, the Lake Creek overlay, and we're also have to do a SWIP because we're disturbing more than an acre. So, so the plan modifications were pretty much mostly addressing those, creating these swales on either side, and trying to direct water to both sides of the property. And also, I think we got a new survey, and the survey, shows everything grading to the front of to this ditch. So, we trying to maintain that with our drainage calculations, and bring it forward through, using some, detention practices and infiltration. Or, underground storage, I guess. I don't think we have good infiltration there. So I think that's pretty much where we're updating, the site plan.
The interior function of the building,
Okay,
storage,
yes,
shop space is kind of the right half.
okay, yeah, there's an overhead door right here,
Yeah.
so that would be that.
And then office is on the left
Yes,
side of the building.
Yeah.
So my only hesitation is the entrance location that's there.
okay,
Anybody kind of walking out of that building, doesn't have a lot of space before they're forced out into the entry drive. There's no sidewalk, there's no way, I mean, you're essentially pushing somebody out into the entry drive to then walk down the middle of the
Okay.
drive aisle to get to their car that's
Okay.
there. My hesitation is just somebody coming in or leaving that with somebody walking out, there's just a lot of cross happening on a curve
okay.
right there. Is there? And I know we're getting down to playing with inches here, but is there a way to put a sidewalk along the building? I mean, I think we have plantings along the building right now.
We have planting.
How wide is that?
That is probably 5 feet, 5 feet.
We don't have room to push the building back, and is the building PEMB? Is it just,
That's gonna have to be a Bob Abbott question.
It's like
I can
Middle.
only speak to the site.
pre-engineer metal building, PEMB, yeah.
Okay,
Which is what I would assume it to be. Yeah, it's just, it's one of the, that's my concern is that there's just not a lot of space for anybody to maneuver, or do anything before they're forced out into the drive aisle to walk.
so well, the thing is, if we had a sidewalk along the front, I mean, I don't have any space, there's no space to move. the
Right,
building,
that's,
And there's no space to move the building back. So. It would be creating, it would be almost moving this entrance somewhere here, and there's
well,
still.
that's what I was wondering. I don't know. if
Just kind of line it up better, and that would have to be, I can go over that with Bob
Yeah, or something.
and see
that-
what he thinks about it.
See what opportunities exist in that realm. And then the trees that, I mean, I appreciate the street trees, you have overhead lines that are right there, don't you?
Yes, is that, there is overhead lines. Let me see what we have
You
for,
have small,
yeah, they're
underlayer
shorter
trees.
trees.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, they look on the drawing,
Yeah.
they look substantial.
They're supposed to look nice.
Well, I know, but I mean, if that's, it's just the visual perception.
Right, right, they're
Getting
really
nice
tall.
big street trees to kind of fill the rest of the neighborhood like that, but
Okay.
it sounds like they're gonna be smaller ornamental trees that.
Yeah, they're, Acer gradala, that's the Mura maple. Oh, is it?
yeah,
Yes.
Mere maple and crab apple. up there.
Is the Mura maple, is that the one going on the DEC?
That is the one,
Okay, so I
yeah,
can
it's,
swatch
so
it
it's
out.
currently on our, and this one I've mentioned, it's currently on our approved species list, but it's something the tree committee is looking to remove.
Okay, I mean, there's other short or lower,
Yeah.
street trees that we can
Yeah, I
swap
mean-
that out, there's an Acer campestra. Paper bark we can use,
Swap them out and then just make sure your graphic diameter is
yeah, a little,
appropriate.
And then probably the evergreen screening on the side there,
Mhm,
those should be 8 feet tall.
okay,
We have them at
Installed.
5 or 6.
okay,
But yeah, the street tree caliper is another one that the tree committee is looking at because they're actually finding that more like 2-inch survive better than 3-inch, so be a little.
yeah, it's a little counterintuitive though,
Yeah.
but we're happy, we see the same thing.
But I would think, cause I know there's that house right there, so probably pushing for the 8-foot evergreens on the side.
Okay,
It's a little bit better.
Yeah.
And you're working on the photometric for this one.
yes,
Correct.
yeah, we have it all metric on that.
Any other comment from the board?
Yeah, Nathan, I got a question. Where were you suggesting to put the door? Like where the landscaping note is?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I had a suggestion where the door was. I was just raising the concern that the door being all the way on the left-hand side forces somebody to essentially step out into the drive aisle. It would be nice if there was a sidewalk or something along the face of the building that somebody could walk.
I totally agree with that, but it almost implied that we were thinking about moving the door without putting the sidewalk in.
Yeah, I
And
don't
for
know
me,
that-
coming out of there, you got that at least 8 foot between the building and the drive aisle, where if you put it where the little arrow is for landscaping, you're basically jaywalking, right? You pop out of the door, you pop out of the shrubs, and then you're in the drive aisle.
No, yeah,
It's like
100%.
Right,
But I
okay.
think that was the concern is. Even with that 8 foot, you're forcing somebody within 8 feet to. Step out and step into the drive aisle on the curve.
Oh, correct, right. So yeah, my feeling is if you can't get a sidewalk in, I would leave it where it is, right? It was my thought. I didn't think that was clear from the comments, that's all.
Yeah,
So basically, if we can't get a 5 foot wide sidewalk across the face, I mean, I'm a little confused.
Well, do we get rid of, do we need what kind of shrubs are these?
They're probably low.
Yeah, so do we want the
Foundation.
sidewalk and get rid of the shrubs, right? Yeah,
I
that's-
don't know the actual circulation for the building, like when it's in use, and we do have the floor plan, it looks like there's small office on the left. I don't know like what his employee count or how many visitors he's gonna have coming in
I
and going.
I would
or-
imagine, he's running his electrical business
Yeah.
out of there, so it's not retail. I mean,
Right.
it's-
And
It's just
I
having
think I remember he
employees.
saying that most of it's gonna be coming through the overhead doors on the
Okay.
right side. But I guess these are questions for the owner.
Okay, so let me talk with Bob on that, and I'm wondering if we did have this, if would just a striped crosswalk across the pavement, kind of help alert someone pulling in or driving through that someone might be walking across there.
yeah, I think I mean,
Yeah, it's literally just, I think, people that work there that will be coming in and out.
yeah, which is fine.
And probably using that entrance. I would think that,
The bottom line
this
is,
is
even if somebody
this
is
way. Yeah.
working there. You get one person that comes to visit, drop something off, or a delivery driver, or
Mhm.
somebody that just comes down and. Hangs it right in there, and somebody that works there and is so used to just walking out the door and walking into the street. The two of those meet, like that's,
right,
I'm just raising my concern.
Okay.
I think it's something that should be looked at
Okay,
in there.
And I can't remember if truck deliveries were gonna circulate out that way and use that entrance, I can't remember if they're coming in one way or out the other,
okay,
Well, the Amazon guy's gonna go straight to the front door,
right?
so.
Yeah. The striped area in between the two ADA spaces, this is something that's come up a lot recently, so
okay,
that needs to be 8 feet wide.
is that 8 feet?
Yeah, I don't know,
What do we-
I took it with a scale, it seemed maybe like it was closer to 5.
Five,
but
okay,
Just to get ahead of
okay.
that.
Cause it's usually, right now it's 8, 8 and 8, it's like 8 and 8 for, right?
Yes, the
And
actual
that's,
space
that's
can be
state code.
8 and the loading can be 8, yep,
Okay.
that is state, yep. So instead of being 9.5, the actual space can be 8 foot, but it needs the 8 foot stripes.
Okay.
Any other questions, comments? Mark?
Yeah, I will have some comments on this. I haven't had an opportunity to review the SWIP yet. But and there's some miscellaneous comments on the utilities, but nothing we really need to do. I'll just get you the comments, and if you have questions, feel free to get a hold of me.
I do have a question, and Mark, maybe you know, was this parcel part of a bigger subdivision project? Where there may have been a stormwater retention in it? 'Cause when I
No,
looked at the tax maps, it looked like it was part of a
yeah,
subdivision, maybe I just misread it.
not that I'm aware of. I mean, there's
Okay.
the I think it's Woodbine behind it.
Okay,
But this, to my knowledge,
wasn't-
was not part of that.
okay,
One thing I do want you to know, the sewer along here is a force main, so you're going to need a grinder pump system
okay,
to connect to the sewer. It's a pressure sewer, not gravity. So,
okay,
but yeah. So yeah, I'll get you comments on this, Terry. Like I said, I'm hoping to get through the SWIP within the next couple days here, and I'll get you those comments.
sounds great, thank you.
Yep.
So Mark, this is also the location where we have, impacts from H2S on that sewer,
Right.
right?
Yep.
Just to point that out, Terry, we treat with, hypochlorite up the Badgley Road site,
Okay,
but I don't know. I mean, it shouldn't impact anything here, I'm just talking out loud.
Yeah, if anything, it should increase the flows in the sewer, so a bit,
Yeah.
so it should help.
Yeah, right. But we do get odor complaints from time to time.
out. Okay,
All right,
all right,
thanks,
good,
Terry.
all right,
Thank
so I'll
you.
talk with Bob about the building items. Wait,
Ridge Street,
They're outside.
Hello.
Thank you.
I started,
Are you sorry?
I took off my jacket.
Miles on.
Because he heats out in hockey rinks.
We need to do the train to switch.
Eight of minutes. 10 days. It's a-
So, I mean, we
Existing,
can
right?
absolutely start here. So this is the property as exists right now. 10,000 square foot warehouse building in the back and the large retail / warehouse space in the front. The old abandoned mini golf course and the unstriped parking lot back here. Board asked to see the property with full conformance, I believe, C2, the next page. Which showed just kind of a conceptual idea of a 10,000 square foot building, some drive-through restaurant, some retail. And the appropriate parking setbacks, all of the code variants or all the code ordinances being met.
So the intent for lot 1B is to keep that building, the Henry Wilson and the mattress shop will. He's intended to keep that active as it is today, so that will not be raised. I know part of the question was, what is the future plan? So this potentially is it for the next sheet as well.
Yeah, at the moment, there's not really full site forward. They're intending to keep both buildings on the property with some, I believe, site improvements, but just kind of a conceptual future idea. And then sheet C3 shows if we were to keep the building on lot 1A, but to continue developing it, keeping the rest of the development within code.
With a complete renovation of the old Steps Plus building.
I think some of the concern here is, if that one building's gonna go subdividing and getting variances for something that might not be needed, because once you get the variances, those go with the land forever. And if they're not gonna be required. We want to get variances that might not be required. Is there a reason to do the subdivision so early before there's a real plan for the site?
So Matt Lester is working with the owner who wants to the lot 1B is kind of gonna be shared ownership. So that's the reason for the subdivision. And in talking to Tom, he was indicated that back in the day, he was requested by this board to combine those lots, because they were separate lots at one point in time. So it's kind of like going back in time to separate them back again. The frontage lot on Bridge Street separate from the Cravick Drive piece. And so that's the intent here, is to separate that building ownership with the future development piece. I don't know if Matt's on the Zoom or not, Matt Lester. But that was what I've been told in our position, is that's the reason for the separation, is Portier is gonna keep at least a shared ownership with the Henry Wilson and mattress store off of Bridge Street.
If we subdivide and there's an existing building, right now it's a non-conforming condition, right?
They're requesting several variances for that back building, so.
But if we can, if this plan is, let's just call this the one that ends up going forward. If it's an existing building, non-conforming, can we subdivide? I think we can subdivide the lot, and you just continue to have a building that is not, it can't be adjusted or modified. It's a non-conforming building, right? Everything else on the site would have to be
So right
modified.
now, these are sitting on a site, on a single site. There's two pre-existing non-conforming structures on the single site. When you divide it off, remember, just keep in mind, for example, the Newcourt one that we just did. When you divide it, you need to bless the nonconformities. They need to go, it needs to go to ZBA on both of the buildings, if that's the case. Because right now you got all this, it's a single non-conforming situation.
That puts both the applicant and the board in a tough position, because obviously the applicant isn't gonna wanna take down the building, and the board's probably not gonna wanna hamper the site by providing variances that we can't necessarily live with in the future. I mean, when it was the mixed use building that was there, we worked through options to bring that building up to the street.
Mhm.
You know, but it wasn't simply just leaving a non-conformity, which in 5 years, when you decide to redevelop the site and take down that old building, we have to live with whatever condition we blessed
Mhm.
Jamie's terms.
They could rebuild a new building at that non.
Right, they could turn it and put it aligned to the street, but at whatever the closest point to the street the existing building is, right?
So,
If they get the variances, then they can build a building in the same location.
Right,
So
the
Jamie, is
variance
there any-
itself.
is
Runs
there
with
any
the-
way that the variances can be tied to the, whatever it is, 40-year-old building? And if the 40-year-old building goes away, the variances go away? Again, that's a legal language thing, but is there a way that can happen?
I'll have to look at that.
But I guess that's, I mean,
That's the thrust of it, right?
yeah, I mean, that's my concern is that
Right.
I don't wanna hamper development of the site.
Right,
Right.
And moving forward, but at the same time, I don't want this board to have to swallow the pill of nonconformities for a building that likely is gonna come down to develop, which is what the hope is for this site, right? So. So I'd have to,
Is there a concern that the building would stay there and kind of get redeveloped around it? Is that a concern, or we're not concerned about that?
concerned about that.
You know, because you're stuck with the building there and that lot, et cetera.
Right, but so just playing this out, I don't know the distance from property line to the front corner of that building, the closest point, right?
Mhm.
But if we subdivide this, the variance has to say that the front yard setback is now 20 feet instead of 40 feet or whatever it is, right? So now they wanna go and they wanna build or add a different piece of property or different building to the site. Well, now there's a 20-foot setback across the front of the building or across the front of the site instead of 40-foot. 50-foot, whatever it ends up being, right? So we have to live with the fact that they could build another building on the left-hand part of the site that's 20 feet off the road instead of 50 feet off the road. Even if they don't modify that existing building. We have to know that any potential development now is at 20 feet from the road because that's what the variance is gonna have to say. Am I wrong in that train of thought?
You're talking about the back building, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Am I wrong in that train of thought?
Can you say that again?
So the existing building that's in the very top, that one there,
Yeah,
that
Yep.
one, and I don't know the distances, so if the front yard setback is 50 feet required, that front corner, the closest point, let's call it 20 feet. The variance is gonna be for a 20-foot front yard setback, right?
well,
So
the
anywhere
requ-
along Private Drive, they could build a building that's 20 feet. Because that's the new front yard setback.
yeah, I'm gonna double check, but yes, that's my understanding.
And it means that it's really a variance for a speculative future project. I think that's a little bit unusual.
Right. So that's why I'm wondering, like. Can you still subdivide and just, I mean. Do you have to correct nonconformities in a subdivision? By issuing variances to make it conforming?
Well, I see what you're saying, but it would can it keep its non-conforming status? You know, I'm gonna do a little research. I see my understanding, and I'll see if I can find anything to the contrary, is it's a non-conforming status the way it sits right now. You can't increase the non-conformity. which is what you're doing, because now it's separate lots. So,
This is essentially the new court
Uh,
project, right? That same logic. All the variances that have been applied for that project for subdivision are because of the subdivision. Why is this any different?
Right,
Well-
that's where,
The difference here
That's
is that that building might come down and then you have variances that are approved, so a new
Right.
building be built in the same location.
But unless those are before the board, that, again, there's no assurances of any of this future development. So don't we have to really look at this as it's presented to us right now?
well, what I think what they're saying, Doug, is the concern is if there's a variance for 20 feet and in the future, this board's like, this building's gonna come down and now any, like by right, you can put it up 20 feet closer and we wouldn't want that, or the next board in the world wouldn't want that. That's the concern.
Oh, no, I understand. No, I
Yeah.
agree.
So let me do some legal research and, see if there's any way to limit this.
I'll just say on behalf of the client. If that building, again, they really don't have an idea, they are doing tenant research as we speak of who and what potentially can go off of Gravik Drive. It is a tough site because it doesn't have, the Erie Boulevard frontage, it doesn't have the Bridge Street frontage. Gravik Drive really,
yeah,
is just a side road or a back road. So they don't know what's gonna go there. But on behalf of the client, the intent would be if that building, that old building goes down, that the intent would be to conform to the code. And we're talking front yard, but we got an array of non-conformity here. Landscape buffer, side yard, I don't know, John, there's all kinds of
Yeah,
stuff on
it's-
that lot. So and again, I know legally we wanna do it right.
right,
But I'm just
Right.
saying, on behalf of the client, the intent isn't to take advantage of that variance. We just want to get that subdivision for that.
understood, and we certainly wanna help, and we need to do our kind of long-term
I get it,
vision goggles and.
100%.
And when you guys walk away from the project and somebody else comes down the line, like.
Yeah.
Is this board gonna have to eat all of that and just deal with whatever development
Right.
comes in? Because we looked at it and we're like, well, the existing building is placed here, so now we have to. Deal with that
I get it.
forever. I just don't know that that's the way that we wanna go, so we don't wanna hinder anything, but we wanna make sure that we're not. Buying something that. We don't want in the future. So, if Jamie will look into it and. I think we'll be able to give you kind of a.
Yep. Yeah, I'll give you the best info I can, so.
Mark? Looking ahead with this site, it looks like there are old wetland maps within 100 feet of a wetland. Do we need to start this determination process early so we can get held up later?
I'm sorry, I'm chuckling because this is a hot topic on every project right now with the new
We're still trying to
determination.
figure out how it works, yeah. But just because I think part of the site might be in the buffer, we probably,
100% now.
yeah, probably should get the determination or start the process since it can take 90 days.
No.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure for the subdivision it's all that critical, but when you go to make modifications to the site, yes.
Wild West right now. Yes. So my only other thing is, we're on agenda for ZBA.
No, we're on the planning board agenda this Thursday for.
Oh, for
road
the
two.
recommendation. Sorry.
Yeah.
My needs are crazy in my head.
Sure we
I
are.
don't think
I
you're
don't
on
think,
for this.
yeah, I don't think it was before that.
Has the variance been applied for?
Yes, I believe we submitted everything for the variance and the planning board referral at the same time.
That was,
Cause that came in first, right? You had the ZB application in first.
Yeah,
Yeah, well, that's, yeah, we're following your guys' lead on that.
so has that gone to ZBA? Is that on
It's
their
not on
agenda?
tonight's
It's not on
agenda,
tonight's,
it's for
it's
February,
be February ZB.
So we
so
have,
we have time.
we have 2 more
We have some
weeks.
time. Yep. Okay,
So let's-
guys. Yep.
Since we have 2 more weeks, let's look at
That
the,
was my point.
right, you know, I don't think, we don't need to do it this Thursday, but let's do a dive into making sure that we're all on the same page in terms of what we're doing here, and then 2 weeks from now, we can do the recommendation based on whatever we come out with, and then you'll have that recommendation go to ZBA in February.
Okay, agreed.
Okay,
Thank you, appreciate that.
thank you.
Yeah.
thank you.
Good day, guys.
You too.
Yeah, man.
But, so, this is what I was trying to, I mean, subdividing existing structures. Won't happen unless they file a site plan application, planning board approves it. 16411. And variances that are granted. On the finding that such variance will not have the effect of the finding.
Tell us.
A variance, blah, 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 granted by the ZBA upon finding that such variance will not have the effect of nullifying the intent and purpose of these regulations. The zoning ordinance or any regulations. So I guess it's just saying that you're not.
What are you reading, Eric? I'm sorry.
This is 16411 subdivisions containing existing structures.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't really tell us anything we didn't already know.
Okay. All right.
A bunch of words.
Confusing language.
But. Basically saying the applicant needs a site plan in and the planning board needs to approve it. And it needs the variances from the ZBA before they would approve the subdivision.
Right. That's basically the New York law anyway, just reiterated.
Yeah.
Like chicken and egg, chicken or the egg thing.
But so part B, in granting such application, the planning board may impose such conditions as will, in its judgment, secure substantially the objectives of the standards and requirements of these regulations.
Yeah, that doesn't help.
Impose. Yeah.
Because it's the ZBA that puts would put
That's just-
conditions about the variances on there, so.
Yeah, but can they put conditions on variances like that? I mean, doesn't. the
No,
Run with the
not
land?
really, not
Yeah.
really.
Yeah, I don't think
That's
so.
my concern.
Yeah, it's like they'll grant
Yeah.
the variance and tear down the building and then these variances are there
Right.
forever.
They get the
Yeah.
subdivision.
Right,
variance
yeah,
there.
so I will look into that, guys,
In the
yep.
wrong order. This project.
Alright. We got this one we'll continue to talk about. The other 2 properties, or the other 2 zones, I don't think there were,
The question with the James Street one though, that should be discussed is doing a straight out zone change or the overlay.
Is who's in the meeting right now?
Max is here.
Okay, hi Max. Can't
Hello.
see. I can't see who's there.
currently, right now, they're all R1, 2.
So the main difference with the overlay, and Jamie, correct me if I'm wrong, is that it would create a use for 3-family residence, which the town code doesn't currently have. It would also bring some of the two-family lots, like the buildings into conformance, not just the
Mhm.
uses. And it would provide a little more, oversight by the town, because like going to a three-family house would require site plan.
Right.
Like just has some different layers to it, rather than just making it R3, which allows some different uses.
Well, the R3 does allow multifamily, which is more than a 2 or a 3 family, so it would have to come in for site plan, but
Yeah, basically, the R3, a two-family or a multi-family requires site plan, whereas in the overlay, a two-family or three-family is permitted. So that's a difference. There's also a little bit, R2 allows a private stable that R3 does not. R3 also allows for a bed and breakfast, which is not allowed in R2.
Yeah.
So,
But going to R3 would require site plan.
For new, right? I mean, I think
I think going from an R2 to an R3 would require.
with the overlay or just.
With the
No,
overlay, I think it said if it's going from two-family to three-family, it would require site plan.
I guess
for what?
it's currently R2. If they want, if we talk about implementing an R3 overlay and they want to go from R2 to R3, then it requires a site plan.
It's, the overlay is called the James Street 2 to 3 family residential overlay district, so it's not actually going to like an R3, it's
Okay.
just like a separate overlay
Yeah, it's
district.
basically creating another zone,
Yes,
just specific to that area.
so,
I know, any conversion of a single family to.
so,
or
sorry,
other
I'm
zones.
sorry, I had to walk away for like a minute. If anyone asks me a question, I'm back, sorry.
So an existing two-family or existing three-family in the overlay would just be allowed to update.
okay, so it was a
But even a
single
conversion from
family.
a 2 to a 3 family still needs site plan, one way or the other.
So single family to anything else requires site plan. Does it say 2 to 3 or did I?
Yeah, no, 2 to 3 also requires site plan.
Okay.
In the overlay.
So it provides
In
a
the
bit more
overlay, but not-
oversight by the town.
But in R3, a multifamily or a two-family is still a site plan. So if something were to convert, it's allowed, but it's a site plan review.
So, Max, to understand, do you think the overlay, the way it's written is a good idea, or you're?
I don't have a problem with it. I think it's. Actually, the one thing I'm kind of like, I wouldn't mind in that area if somebody wanted to put a bed and breakfast in there. I actually think it'd be fine.
Not a stable.
But not a stable. I like, but I don't really, none of it is, I think either change is acceptable to me. I think either one will be acceptable to the town board, most likely. Since this one is already written, I don't think there's a lot of, we can put it on as a law change and it shouldn't take much longer than the zone change. Since it's already written on that one, so.
It actually would be the same. It would just need to go on the desks of the counselors within the period of time, and then public hearing, and that would be it. That would probably be the easiest one of all.
Yeah, so I mean, it's if you guys, I mean. If this was the way the board was going to go on this one that they wanted to overlay, I would probably. Shortcut the zone change at this point and just add add to the agenda for our next Monday meeting at the town board to set a public hearing for the law change.
Max, when is your next deadline? Or when is your next meeting?
Our next meeting is next Monday,
This coming Monday, okay.
yeah, a week from
Um,
yesterday. Our
mhm.
deadline for adding things to the agenda is today. I mean,
If you feel strongly about getting this on the agenda, might I suggest that you, like you said, it's totally written. And I did look at it quite closely again and think it really does accomplish what the board wants, and I think even better than the zone change, which is why back then we didn't change, why it wasn't considered a good idea to go to R3, because it also brings so many things into conformance for these people. And then I will circulate, and I think I already did, but recirculate that legislation, and perhaps we can come up with a recommendation on this one for this Thursday. Nate, what do you think?
Fair.
Well, I guess we actually don't have to do the recommendation Max
not
can
a zone
introduce it and it can go, right?
yeah,
we
I mean, it's technically a separate process to change the law here.
Right,
Is a separate process from the zone change
right.
recommendation that we asked for. So,
So why don't you go ahead with that? And then by the time you're ready to, have your public hearing and act on it, we will have had another meeting to send a recommendation.
my interest in putting, if you're leaning this way and putting it on the agenda would be to confirm with the board that this is the way they want to go, which is usually how,
Okay,
when we set a public hearing for a law, then it's usually because there's the board
consensus.
in favor of it,
Mhm.
yeah. So,
Nate, that's up to you. Are you,
Yeah, I'm good with
I
that.
mean, or do you think we're too rushed on it? I mean, I think people have
As long
looked
as
at
we're
it.
not lumping all three of them into it, can we address this one? We're not.
well, because this one's going separately, I mean, because it has a separate process if we're going to go with the overlay. I'd rather, if we're coming back and we were gonna do the zone change for all three,
Mhm.
then I just leave all three together so we can do our process together.
Right. But
But
if you're gonna do an overlay. on
An
this one
overlay here.
versus The zone change.
Yeah.
On the other ones, yeah, I think that's fine.
So just procedurally, does the planning board recommend like for an overlay district? For the implementation of the overlay district or like the application of the overlay district, does the planning board generally make a recommendation for that?
Generally.
Sometimes it's, I mean, it is a zone change.
Right.
So it
Okay.
just, it's
That's how
a
we deal with
different.
the MUB. The applicant comes to us and says, we wanna do this MUB. We
The
say,
planning board
okay,
recommends the town board?
we recommend it to the town has to
Mhm.
implement the overlay.
Okay,
Mhm.
okay, but
Yeah,
not the creation of the overlay would be just the town board, but actually like.
I think it's more informal, because rather than like the overlay, like the MUB, like that
Mhm.
process like we did with East Genesee, I think it's closer to like when we wrote the MUB for
Mhm.
together, because it's not really,
Well, writing it and implementing it are two different things.
well,
We write it and you add this area as an overlay, but
Mhm.
none of those parcels actually have the overlay.
Well, I think the way Jamie wrote the legislation is that this actually does both.
Yeah,
So
there's two pieces of legislation. One
Yeah.
that
Oh.
actually puts it on here. It's
There's
already.
one that creates it and one
It
that applies it.
automatically overlays all of these properties. It's not.
No, not automatic, not
It's not
automatic.
really an overlay.
Well, she said not automatically. That's the
Well,
question.
no,
I'm trying to
not
get at.
automatically. There's the legislation implements it. There's,
Right, but those property owners
Will,
don't have a say. It's automatic on their property. Once the town does that, their parcel is now has the overlay implemented on it.
correct.
yes, it's not
Correct.
really an overlay, it's really another district. It's just called an overlay. Because it calls an overlay in the sense that it absorbs R2 into it.
Right, but it's all
Yeah.
to the benefit. We're not hindering them or.
We're not
They're
creating
not
any
required to
non-conformities.
Change anything.
We're actually bringing things
It's
conforming.
still in R2
Yeah.
than single family houses.
Right,
There are no more restrictions.
that's my concern, is that there's
Increases.
nothing, some property owner's not gonna come screaming and saying, wait a second, I didn't want this.
Yeah, no, this
Whereas
does,
the MUV, somebody has to come and say,
Yes,
I
I
want
want
this.
yeah. The only thing this does is say that something that is non-conforming becomes conforming. There's no
Or
added
can.
restrictions. Can become conforming, yes, but there's no added restrictions in the overlay.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with it. Anyone else?
I am, I will, if I can, board members who are here, and thank you so much for staying on. I'll recirculate that. I'll try to answer questions, you know, if you want to, you know, email me separately, not in a group, because we don't want to be in violation of the open meetings law, but if you have any questions about it, and I'll try to answer them. But in short, and again, to reiterate, that this legislation brings a lot of these things into conformity. There's ways you can have the 2 and the 3 family. And it is specific to this, like the tax map numbers are already reiterated in the companion legislation that implements the overlay. So it's technical, it's a, you know, legally how it's done, but what will happen if this board recommends and the town board adopts it, this area will have 2 and 3 family dwellings, many of which will be conforming, whereas right now they're just not conforming at all. And it's something that I know Ed has wanted for a long time, which is why that legislation was drafted so many years ago, but never nobody else and people on the board right now didn't really know about it. So
Is it necessary or worthwhile considering R3 and how R3 could be implemented in the future elsewhere in the town? In other words, is this written in such a way that it could be deployed elsewhere other than here?
of course.
Well, I'm asking, has it actually been considered that way, or is it really tailored more so to
Well,
fixing this problem?
Yeah, Doug, it's pretty tailored, but if it was looked at and someone said, hey, let's put it over here, it could also happen.
I mean, it specifically refers to like James Street properties and looks pretty.
Mhm.
Doug, I think that from the town, from my perspective, I think in re-looking at other areas of implementing R3, I think the R3 and what's allowed and what we want to do is probably going to be looked at over the next few years of, you know, revising it, maybe allowing, you know, I'm hoping that we go through a more comprehensive look at our plan and then at our codes, and I think what's in this would be included in that. I think this is definitely a piece of that. I don't know if it's directly, like, we'll be looking at expanding exactly this legislation somewhere else, or just taking the parts of it that we like from here and seeing what we can do to the all R3, or if there's a, you know, R4 or an R3A or something that we want to do.
It's interesting in that 3 family is not either you're a 1 or 2 family into it, or you're a multifamily, which is as many as you want. This talks about a 3 family, which is an interesting animal, and some towns do have specific for 3 families. So this will be the only place that 3 family is mentioned, but it might be something that is desirable elsewhere.
That specifically is that 3-family definition and that kind of thing is something I think we could look at. Does that fit elsewhere as well?
Well,
Right.
it's also interesting, unrelated to zoning, but the building code uses that distinction. 1 and 2 family is residential code. 3 family and above is actually considered more in the commercial code.
Which I have a feeling it's probably why we just have 1, 2 and multifamily, because it's
Right.
everything more than 2.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, let's look at the next one. So this was the one that we had talked about last time, it doesn't look like it changed, but this is the one with the quarry property being subdivided.
Yeah, just taking out, basically, what we took, when, at the last meeting, we talked about just basically taking the quarry property out of the.
Right, leaving the quarry property as is, so you'd have, the golf course property would now become single zone. Quarry property would stay single zone, and then properties across the street would all be rezoned accordingly. So this map needs to be updated in here, right?
If that's, however,
Because as this map shows, like, we would not recommend on this one.
Do you wanna change proposed zone change, or should it just be the way that the planning board responds to the proposed?
that was my question, I mean, I would need to go back to the town board to change the request. But I think if you guys change the map, or what you would recommend, that would make,
Well, you created the map, right? Yep.
Yeah.
So, can you change the map?
yeah.
It's gonna cost you. But I mean, I whatever map we have, this one being, I'd like it to accurately reflect.
No, yeah, that, I just
What the
from a,
request is, right? I mean, we've looked at, it. I don't think,
Yeah,
don't think we have the
what the
problem.
planning board is
recommend,
recommending,
Right.
not what the request is, because that's not changing.
yes.
So within the red dashed, that's converting from high tech to residential. That's the end
that was
result.
the initial request, but I'm,
Julie, can you?
So the only
mouse on
difference,
the
Doug, is,
quarry
yeah,
part?
that little where the arrow
Right
is,
to the right of it.
yeah, that quarry parcel.
that, right
Yeah,
there.
see where it's a split zone?
Yep.
We would reorganize that red dashed line to go out and around, so the quarry parcel remains high tech.
Right where the mouse is.
Right where the mouse is, that little piece would be orange, but the parcel just below that. That would be residential. The parcels across the street where the church and the house are, that would be residential. And then the parcel, the little wedge piece up above, which is an extension of the golf course, would be residential.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't that the only road access to the high tech now going through a residential district?
Yes. I mean, actually, no, you can go underneath
Yeah.
the highway.
Can you?
Yeah, right where that temporary concrete plant is.
To get this,
No.
Off of Rock Cut Road,
To
basically.
get to the quarry,
oh, okay.
To get to that whole
To get to
lower
that.
parcel down there, you can get there by accessing it underneath.
Over the last couple of years, my ear has been chewed off by the owner of that quarry property. I think it's VIP.
Yeah.
About that site and developing that site and, you know, how to get to it and access it.
They have that site kind of down by the end of the old stone house that they want to develop.
Yeah, it's that smaller piece at the bottom.
Yeah.
That's VIP owns that one.
Yes.
Well, again, I renew, regardless if there's another access point to the high tech site, I guess my only hesitation is that existing roadway is really the primary access to get into that site, or could be. Is that a wise thing to do through a residential site? Seems not.
I think the concern from the town board standpoint, which is in bringing this in with Nottingham Road, is that the rest of that area along Nottingham Road is residential. And so allowing that to be developed into a high-tech use would not be consistent with Nottingham Road.
If you're coming off 481, you gotta go up Nottingham, which is residential, or you gotta come from the other direction, which is residential. So you have traffic, high-tech traffic driving through residential regardless. I mean, you're talking about a primary street versus a secondary street, you know, and how that street is used. But access to that is still through residential area.
Can just to clarify, if someone has their cursor, so the piece, that piece. Who
That should
owns
be
that-
orange.
That's the core.
It's the-
That piece right there, and it is
Yeah.
currently,
That was high tech.
yep, it's currently high tech,
Yes,
Yes.
and we're trying to make it residential?
No,
That would be taken out of it.
This
Okay,
is
Board
the-
would recommend that that not be.
yeah, Jamie, the drawing that's up was the previous proposal when we talked about it 2 weeks
Thank
ago
you.
or whatever it was.
Mhm.
And we said, no, that whole quarry parcel should remain high tech. Cause we
okay,
don't
I
wanna
thought so.
create a split zone lot.
Mhm. Okay, I just wanted to make sure. But right next to it would be residential down on the bottom, and then to the right of it,
Yeah,
residential, and then that triangular.
yeah,
Yeah, I think as long as that's kept industrial, and that would be would be, you know, an access for development of that piece, should that happen, which would be a Doug, Arena, I'm curious, like, people are saying, hey, can we develop it? Or just getting back to your question, or the quarry thinks they want to develop it, or,
The VIP owns that smaller lot down
They-
at the bottom.
oh, the smaller, mhm.
No,
no,
No.
This
no,
no,
Yeah.
in the high.
Down near the cul-de-sac. The next one down, that one.
Yes,
Oh,
And
mhm.
that's the site that they wanted to do
self-storage.
self-storage.
Apartments, I've
Mhm.
heard, since I've been here, I've heard both of those from them. Apartments was the last one.
And how do they access it?
down whatever the name of that street is,
Old Stone
Old
House.
Stone
Old
House,
Stone House.
which really isn't built.
Hmm.
for it.
Off of Nottingham, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a
Yeah.
town road and it's certainly, I think it's pretty steep getting down to the cul-de-sac at the bottom.
It is.
It may not
Yeah,
even be a
it's gated off.
compliant.
yeah, it's
You
not,
can't even get down there.
yeah.
Old Stone House
Okay.
is county. Oh, County road, it sounds like.
I mean, I think that this looks like a reasonable plan, as long as that piece is taken out of the recommendation.
Okay.
That's my opinion, obviously, only.
What, and maybe instead of making that one island lot on the southwest corner, that is being converted to residential, maybe why not just keep that as high tech? Just to the south of where you were
The
worried about
southwest,
the split zone.
so the southwest one is undeveloped right now, but the current property owner is interested in building a house on it. Which is not allowed in high tech.
Oh. I see.
And it's currently residential.
No, that one is currently high tech still. Oh, but it's vacant, yeah, it's unused, it's unused, there's people across the street from the church.
So, I mean, as it stands right now, it's high tech,
It's high tech,
he cannot build a house on it,
Correct.
or she cannot build a house on it.
yes.
So we are modifying that one to accommodate that potential future request of adding a house. Whereas to Doug's point, we're just
It would,
ferreting out the comments here. If it was to remain high tech, that whole side of the street is all high tech.
yes,
What are the pros and cons to that? And right now, they can't put a house on it. If we did absolutely nothing and it just remained high tech, they still can't put a house on it, right?
correct.
Correct.
So we're changing the zone of that parcel to accommodate a potential request of adding a house. They may never put a house on there.
They may never develop that into anything. Correct.
But it would make it a higher and better use. And if they wanted to sell it and somebody else could put a house on it, that would be the better use for the piece.
Now, I don't know offhand, but a reminder that a lot of uses have buffers from the residential that would end up coming into play if a house, is built there, or even if it's just residentially zoned. I just don't know what they are offhand. So but I don't think.
Well,
any
I
of-
mean, it wouldn't, I mean, if we're zoning, I mean, if it was based on. Yeah. It would extend it to the end of that lot, but with the church and the other house across the street, it's not like it's an island of.
No, but
But yeah, no, that would have an effect.
it would have a effect on the development of this lot in some ways, like buffer from residential. I'd have to look at that. Exactly what that would be.
So this is a zone change. This is different than what we were talking about on the previous one, so.
So the last one would be
Overlay.
a law change.
Law change.
This one specifically is just a zone change.
So this would be the full recommendation from our board to you guys to make that change.
Yes.
So let's update that map. This map. And then I'll give it to you. You can forward it. Sound good? Yeah. Okay. Any other questions on this one?
I'm good.
Did you kind of get your questions answered, Doug?
I did, yeah. At least I understand the situation a lot better, thanks.
Then the room. So this is another one, which I think it's just gonna take some more conversation and understanding and the best approach. Looking at it, did you have a chance, Doug, to put the chart, the comparison together? I have not. I'd like to get that. So I don't know.
What were we looking to compare? I can't remember.
Well, it's an R0 currently, so comparing an R0 to what the Hamlet overlay would do, or the Hamlet district would do. So what's allowable in there, so that we're seeing all those potential uses. I'm still not convinced that the Hamlet is the appropriate direction that this should go.
Some of this is R2 as well. I don't think we mentioned that initially,
I thought it was all R0.
that
The north, there's,
The street.
so that bit right there.
is all
Okay.
R2.
The entire penitentiary is R0. But that where the cursor is R2, and then the two parcels to the right are actually industrial. But that's where the firehouse is. Right.
I think some of the ones across the street aren't they in the Hamlet, residential?
So the
Hamlet
R2, yes, there's a Hamlet residential overlay that they are already in.
overlay? Yeah, so some of,
So it already
Along-
applies some of the Hamlet stuff to them.
yeah, along that corner and the back part of it, yeah, like where the cursor is.
My only. I guess if that's what's up on that part, and it's kind of consistent with the opposite side of the road of Jamesville. That's consistent. My biggest concern is the penitentiary site down there and how that's going to be looked and developed. You know, does it make more sense to create this as a required PDD? So it's R0, and unless somebody can come in and show us the master plan for this whole site.
Does the town allow a PDD? Do you have to have some sort of enabling legislation, Jamie?
Yes.
Which I don't believe. the town does. So I mean, you have to do something like that or make a new like a actual mixed use zone that's not an overlay. Do something
Yeah, so that-
along those
I
lines.
share your concerns, Nate. I think it was just. So from my perspective, and I think the town board shares this, is that there's a timing issue and the Hamlet isn't perfect. But it was the best thing that we could find currently existing in the code.
Well, with the timing issue, so talk a little bit more about the timing issue. Is there a proposal on the table?
There is not a proposal that we know of on the table, but that we know of is my problem. Because this is, how this will happen is that a judge will determine the fate of it, and if the judge determines that the fate is the sheriff gets to decide, then it's gonna stay penitentiary. If the judge decides, no, sorry, the county executive gets to decide, the next day he's gonna say, move out of the penitentiary, hey, look at this that just appeared on my table here of this great plan for this spot. And this is what we're going to do there. And the town board would like to make an opinion known of what the town of DeWitt would like there before it is just.
Well, let me ask
dictated
this
to
question. All right, so. Playing this out, the judge says, no, it's the county executive. The county executive says, oh, miraculously, this thing just showed up on my. But the only thing that could show up on his desk right now. That's allowable in our town would be R0.
Yes.
So. You'd have to have a developer. And we have a good developer on the line right now. To tell us that they could reasonably show R0 in there. And make that financially feasible, that somebody is willing to take that on as a bunch of R0 lots. You have the penitentiary, you've got all of the outbuildings, you've got everything else that's on there. I mean, to tear all that down, to put all the infrastructure in. Is that a financially feasible approach? Right now, just, I'm assuming something just showed up on Ryan's desk and. You know, it shows an R0 development that goes throughout this entire site.
Yes.
Sell all those lots for. I mean.
I don't know, you've got, if you got some nice views, you tear everything out there. You make some 2-acre lots, build some 5,000 square foot, 6-bedroom, 6-bath McMansions, you got Micron executives that are gonna need houses.
Is the county, if it's county owned property, are they bound by local municipal zoning anyway?
Yes.
As long as it's county owned, then they can do what they want, but they.
Well, it's county owned.
Well, no,
Public
you have to,
You want
it's
for
a,
a public purpose.
Yeah,
But that's that test, right, Jamie? You're.
yeah, it would be, if the county wants to do something with it for a public purpose, then they have a better chance of not being subject to the zoning, but it's a 9-point balancing test in the law. If it's a private developer, it's much more difficult for them to say we're not subject to zoning, and the town would have to fight it.
Okay.
Make a determination, and then they have to go to court about it.
I mean, the
Let's just
county,
assume that they're good neighbors.
the county turns around and says, we wanna use the penitentiary property to. You know, stick
Make an
our
aquarium.
IT staff there.
It's gonna be an aquarium.
Yeah, well, make an aquarium, there we go.
Exactly, right?
They turned around and said we wanted to make it a zoo extension. You know, we probably, or, you know, prep area for the aquarium, whatever it was, we wouldn't be able to say anything on it, most likely.
Yeah, most likely, right? That's true on the balancing test, but
But
that's,
yeah, it's more the private development that would be
Right.
my expectation of where they would go with it.
And the town board does not want R0 there.
No,
Max, I was telling everyone, we just got an inquiry, these two lots here, in order for sale right now, where Brightview is. And then the one
Yeah.
on the corner,
Mhm.
and we just got an inquiry if the town would be interested in changing this one to residential. To possibly make a subdivision with this one, the one behind it.
yeah, which is. Very clearly, very strong, same thing with us, Ed. And I believe the majority of the town board agrees, does not want 173 on 173 to be residential.
it's interesting when all of that happened. It wasn't so much that I think the board and people were saying, we don't want 173 residential. I think it was more like, we don't think anybody's going to want to be residential along 173. Times are changing, you know? But back then, and there was a lot more land available and, you know, different things. They're like, well, hey, nobody's ever gonna want, the city lights didn't want 173, you know,
Those are-
basic.
There's no sewer, so that has to be big lots, which
Yeah.
are gonna be more expensive, and who wants to live on like a 55-mile-an-hour highway?
But I think that's
That
the
was always the
concern.
thought process. Mhm.
Yeah, but that's the concern of the board, is that even if we say, oh, you know, who would wanna build R0 there?
Right.
People wanna build residential everywhere. I mean, and you know, if it's R0, then they'll find a way to, you know, make it R0. Especially if the county were to say, oh, well, the penitentiary has issues, it's our building. We're gonna demo and remediate it and then sell it to a developer. Then the math works a lot better.
From a practical point of view, does this area have the infrastructure, water, sanitary, electric, to support a higher intensity residential use or commercial use?
Yes, this lot has sewer, this lot has infrastructure.
Because of being the penitentiary, it does actually have the infrastructure for higher use.
I think that what everyone needs to do is say, if it's Hamlet, what could go there? What would be the size of the lots? And, you know, I think the concern I've expressed is it could be a, you know, just eureka for the county, because they'll be like, look at all the things we can do here. We can divvy it off, we can parcel it off. And that you wouldn't get what you think you would want there. Like, it would be like, wow, we have to give them their retail use. It can be on this really small lot. You know, like, that's the concern, is that it could end up really being a piecemealed project. Which is, and that it won't at all look like what you thought it was gonna look like. It's just gonna be like, whoever comes in gives me the best price to do their box store, to do their, you know, apartment building, you know, all these things that you can do in the hamlet. Well, there's some height restrictions, but, that you're ending up, like, the best intentions are, hey, we really don't want residential, but how bad do you not want residential as compared to what you might end up with if you put this hamlet? I am concerned that the county will be absolutely jumping up and down in glee about this being changed to hamlet and all the things they can do, and figure out how they can do it, and figure out that the planning board has no power to stop them. That's just what I would like to have looked at. And how many acres are we talking about here, by the way?
Hundred and 65.
There was some of the rear part we think probably would stay account, isn't there some okra stuff back there?
Yeah.
So they might not all be developed.
Wait, oh, did you say Okra? Doesn't Okra have that whole back section? South?
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is
I
counting.
don't think the whole lot would likely be developed, but who knows?
And there's that solar farm.
Yeah.
On the back lot.
I guess not.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree. I would really like a mixed use zone that wasn't optional. Would make me much happier. But
Well, I mean, with an R0 with an M4 overlay on it. I mean, that. You're requiring them to do a lot of work to sell these parcels off as R0.
well, but the problem is, it's a law change, because our law doesn't. You cannot force mixed use under our current law.
So
It has to
here's
be
the
requested.
question. Rather than.
What about the
making
MUV?
its own, would it be possible to change the law so that the town could implement it if they wanted to? Like, is that possible rather than having to write a whole new district?
Say that again, Alana?
Would it be possible to change the MUV4 zoning to allow the town to implement it when they want to, rather than only when it's requested? Rather than having to write a whole new mixed use.
It's a little more complicated than that, because again, you fall into the MUV is based on size, so could you get out of it? The MUV4 is based on size, so if you just subdivide it under that size, then you'd be out of the MUV4. I mean, if you're making a little law change, you're making a big law change, the statutory time is the same, it's the writing the law
Right,
time
that's what I was thinking. about,
that
trying to get
increases,
rid
yeah.
of.
Well, I will say this, because now that, this has been kind of kicking around, I think on our radar for about 2 months max. I know there's a concern that, all of a sudden something's going to come up. But a zone change or a change in the law for such a large parcel, I think would withstand, if it was done properly, any kind of a spot zoning concern. And that it's such a large parcel that trying to do something specific for it seems like an excellent use of time. And even if they come up with a project that is, if it's a private project, they would have it can still be, as long as there's no shovels in the ground, like you haven't done things in reliance on the certain zoning, you can still change it. And the town does not want they don't want RO, I get that. But I really don't think they want the result of Hamlet. So if everyone takes the tact of, and you want to take the lead or, get a committee and say, hey, what would work here? Do we have anything in our code that we can adapt to it? Like make the MUV4 applicable to RO zones. You have to look at every RO zone, et cetera. But to get something that makes some sense rather than something that could end up being an unintended consequence.
Makes sense. It's a little bit of a thought experiment to understand what could happen.
Who takes the lead on that?
Luckily, I'm not there, but I heard there's a town councilor there.
I'm trying to think through. That's a proposal that's bigger than just me. So I will add that to the agenda for our town board meeting on Monday, and I will see kind of where the sense is of the rest of the board. I'll update them on the discussions that we've had on this one. And see where they are kind of thinking that they might want to go, if that's something that time frame meets the interests of the town board.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think this board's opposed to something. I think we recognize the issue. But I'm not sure that it doesn't sound like we're comfortable with a hamlet there, so you gotta find something else.
I mean, another thought is, we have these mixed use districts, so they've been written already, they've just been written as like optional. What if there's a fifth one that isn't optional, but you can use this?
Well, that's kind of what I was just looking at, is like, I'm kind of looking at the MUV, and I think I'd have to print it out. I don't
Make it
read
like
well on
the
my
same
phone,
restrictions
and
and
like,
stuff,
and
but
almost say,
MUV 5.
well, not even,
Not an MUV.
not an
but mixed
MUV,
use
but just
overlay,
like,
mixed
because we
use
still,
zone.
we still have a mixed use,
Call it something different.
Right,
yeah.
like a lot of the work has been done creating these mixed use zones, if there's one that just
We could
is not
yeah.
an overlay.
It might just be looking at, if we take the MUV. If we rewrite it as a zone, as a non-optional zone, and then maybe tweak it.
Yeah.
For this area, that might be the best way to go.
That might be the avenue that we have to go.
And I mean, you could even make it like the default, like MUV 2 or something like that, and that could be the base zone, and you could still apply an MUV 4.
I would probably say,
Because if.
well, honestly, I'd probably say an MUV 1. As like the permitted use, and then I probably give you like a site plan with the MUV 2 and the MUV 3.
Yeah.
So that, it's just,
Yeah.
it's allowed,
Yeah.
with that, and then the
So much thought was already put into.
Yeah.
yeah, no,
this
and I
that-
really like our mixed use, it's just,
Yeah.
it's not that. It's just not required,
Right.
which
But
I would
that tweak
really-
Might not take that.
that
long.
might not take that long.
Yeah.
Let
I don't know that
me,
you're gonna get MUV3 out of there, but. That would be. I mean, that's
As a
6-story
different
buildings and
site.
stuff, yeah, I mean, I don't think Janesville wants. A developer to come in, I mean, vertical construction is gonna be less expensive anyway, but. They're not gonna want 6-story buildings. Popping up around.
no,
Right, so
although,
you don't wanna go with the MUV1 and MUV2, I can see. Those
Yeah.
ones happening, MUV3, I wouldn't.
well, but I think that's where it would be, I mean, maybe it's not even site plan, maybe it's specific use or something, but that, it would be something where. We would say. Possibility, but actually, you know what, I probably, actually, as I think about it, the proposal was, cause this actually was, we did wanna make it. MUV2, was what
I
we
think that's
wanted
the
to
more
draw over
reasonable
it,
one.
yeah, cause the cement plant's MUV2. And we're like, okay, that's consistent with what we've already thought through for Janesville. So maybe if we'll start off with the MUV2. I'll talk to the board about it on Monday. I will say,
I would start with the
What about
MUV
that?
two, and I would take some of the sentiment and language from MUV four, because it's a big site, we want the oversight on how this site is gonna be developed.
well, I think so so an MEV four can always be, if they're doing it as one big parcel. I mean, then they probably apply for the MEV four, because it gives them way more leeway.
And if we do a mixed use zone, probably should make it a little. I mean, thinking it might be used in other places in the town after the next comp plan process, there might be other places
But that's where-
identified as being.
But
straight
that's
up
what,
mixed
but that's
use.
where if it's not in MEV 1, 2, 3, or 4, if it's a VUM 1.
Right.
And it's only applied to here. It doesn't happen anywhere else in the town, it is strictly applied to this 100+ acre site.
But they can still get the mixed use MUV four overlay over something. right?
I
Yes,
think it,
like it always
although
is.
it's not, I believe you can't put it on a residential, zoned
But it-
parcel.
But if it was if the underlying zoning was a mixed use zone. Then you could put MUV four over that if they were proposing something more dense, like more dense mixed use
Yeah, I
development.
mean, this is again, I don't want to keep all of our very kind board members who have been on for 2 hours. You know, in this kind of a discussion, it's kind of a in the weeds discussion. I think that what Nate was saying is, you know, there's a lot of people who seem on this board uncomfortable with the hamlet. What else can we do, and how do we get there? And also somehow, you know, explain to the board, it's not that this board has an issue with this zone being changed in some way. It's just that right now we don't have anything that seems to fit the bill.
I am
That's what
happy
I'm
to. Yeah, I'm happy to take that to the town board on Monday and see where they are.
Great, feel free to circle back with me and Nate.
Yeah, oh yeah, no, as soon as we have that conversation, if that's gonna be the plan, and if that is the plan. Yeah, I'll take a lead on. Getting that written.
Committee or something.
Yeah, we'll put together a committee of some kind if we're gonna write that through. Hopefully it wouldn't take a lot, because I would. hope-
Even the James Street Committee went very well. It just never went to its next.
I just never finished, yeah.
I truly don't know what happened to that, but.
Okay.
We've done it before, we can do it again.
Good for now?
Just for in conversation, just one final thing, across the street, so the residential properties and the firehouse. Would we including that as well, or is there an issue with that being moved over to the hamlet zone? Or would you wanna,
No, then I would make those mixed use.
I mean, I think the properties to the north, I think those seem almost consistent with some of the hamlet stuff that's happening
Yeah.
through there. It's that singular large parcel that I
Okay.
don't think can be lumped in with everything else,
that's fine.
so.
Okay, I just wanna make sure I'm presenting it to the town board the right way.
Unless anybody else online disagrees, I think that's the best approach.
Expect a lot of feedback from the residents of Janesville, no matter what.
Sure.
Oh, yeah.
Good
I have
comment.
to leave. I'll see you guys Thursday. Sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No, sorry. Thank you for staying on. I also have to go. Are we we good? Nate, do you need me for anything?
Yep.
Okay,
No.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Yep.